All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. It is Tuesday, and you know what that means. Time for some Tuesday Tao. Do the Tao now. We're reading from Dr. Wayne W. Dyer's Change Your Thoughts, Change Your Life, Living the Wisdom of the Tao. And today, we will add another incredible episode to this wonderful series, ladies and gentlemen, that is on my channel. If you've yet to check it out, be sure to check out the playlist. But we are on the 61st verse of the Tao Te Ching. And Wayne Dyer titles his section here today, extrapolating on this 61st verse of the Tao Te Ching. He calls it living by remaining low. That's an interesting thought. Living by remaining low, ladies and gentlemen, and how that could help us in our lives and help us to increase the quality of our lives, because our lives are made up of moments. And if we can increase the quality of our moments, then you know what that means, ladies and gentlemen. We can increase the quality of our lives and, hopefully reduce a little bit of suffering or negativity or, all of these things that everybody struggles with or has to deal with going through this human journey here. So I've got myself some tea ready, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope you're ready. Hope you got yourself a beverage. Let's see what the tea says today. Love is the highest of all virtues. So with that being said, let's dive right into the 61st verse of the Tao Te Ching. It begins by saying, "A great country is like the lowland, toward which all streams flow. It is the reservoir of all under heaven. The feminine of the world, the female overcomes the male with stillness by lowering herself through her quietness. So if a great country lowers itself before a small one, it wins friendship and trust. And if a small country can lower itself before a great one, it will win over that great country. The one wins by stooping, the other by remaining low." Very fascinating, ladies and gentlemen. And like all of these verses, it's kind of paradoxical, or the lessons seem contrary to what would be commonly understood. Or another way to say that is, it seems to be the opposite of what you would actually expect. And so without me rambling too much further, let's dive right into what Dr. Wayne Dyer has to say here about this verse and how it talks about remaining low. A great country is like the lowland, it said, towards which all streams flow, and the one wins by stooping, the other by remaining low. Good little rhyming there, but living by remaining low. Wayne Dyer begins by saying, quote, "Most of us have been taught that it's important to tower over lesser folks in virtually all of life's endeavors." And so how many of us, I'll ask you, ladies and gentlemen, have had this kind of, this teaching, or have had this concept or idea given to us from whoever, whether it be teachers or parents or any, people in leadership or teaching positions in our lives that have taught us lessons. How many have taught us that it's important to tower over lesser folks in virtually all of life's endeavors? Well, let's continue with what Wayne says here. Quote, "We're told to get to the top or stand out in a crowd, be the best, and honor champions who defeat challengers. We're expected to pay homage to those who make the most money, collect the most material objects, and evoke the most fear and obedience because of their positions of power. And those who deign to live among the commoners are the least deserving of our respect." This passage of the Tao Te Ching, ladies and gentlemen, invites us to reevaluate these beliefs, to reevaluate, I'll add, these concepts of life and reality that we've had taught to us or ingrained into us, to be the best and always win, and, striving to be in front of everybody else or on top of everybody else. But what this verse of the Tao Te Ching is teaching us today is that there is another way. And that is what this is all about. Changing your thoughts and changing your life. Changing and reevaluating our beliefs and our perspectives and viewpoints on life so that we can experience a much higher quality of life. And so Wayne continues here. Look at the ocean. It's the most powerful force on the planet because it stays lower than the streams. Now, this is a lesson here about this paradoxical idea. So, even though the ocean's the most powerful force on the planet, relatively, it is this way because it stays lower than the lesser forms of itself, or the streams, which are necessarily and inescapably drawn to it. Wayne continues with that last sentence as well as this. As the rivers flow downward to become one with it, the sea is able to be the great reservoir of all under heaven. Like what was mentioned in the 61st verse there, it is the reservoir of all under heaven. The great country is like a lowland towards which all streams flow. And so we can, use these as metaphors for ourselves rather than a country. A great individual is like the lowland towards which all streams flow. So remember, ladies and gentlemen, these are metaphors. So I always liked this idea of the ocean being an example. Wayne continues, as the rivers flow downward to become one with it, the sea is able to be the great reservoir of all under heaven. This is what Lao-tzu refers to throughout the Tao Te Ching as the Great Mother. See, we were wondering about that in the past. Or, quote unquote, the feminine of the world. That female energy, or yin, in the yin and yang, so these polarities or these dualities creating a oneness. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, and we've talked about these subjects in many of other of our videos on the Tuesday Tao series, as well as the Wednesday Wisdom. So be sure to check those out if you want to get deeper into these concepts of, the feminine of the world, or the Great Mother, or the yin, as Wayne was stating just then, and will continue, is the true receptor of all. By remaining quiet and still, it ultimately overcomes male or yang efforts to subjugate and conquer. So what comes to my mind there, ladies and gentlemen, is the principles of magnetics and electrics. And magnetics are expansive. Electrics are, or vice versa, sorry there. Magnetics are contractive, which is female energy, and the electrics are expansive. And so you can see these opposite polarities in that example, which comes to us from ancient Egyptian teachings, ladies and gentlemen. But let's continue here. In the 61st verse of the Tao Te Ching, this verse that we're going over here today, Lao-tzu speaks of the advantages of leading by remaining low. As you may be aware, these last few verses here over the last few weeks, he's been talking about leadership and rulership and government and these kind of ideas, larger, less mystical and transcendent ideas and spiritual, while remaining somewhat on the spiritual side. But he's talking about those ideas, the leadership, the rulership. So Lao-tzu speaks of the advantages of leading by remaining low, using entire countries as his examples. So he makes the case for nations both large and small to be like the great ocean. As he observed warring territories attempting to vanquish each other by exerting their strength, he saw that peace and harmony could only be possible if the territories behaved in accord with the Tao. That is, by subjugating their egos rather than their neighbors. And so he saw Lao-tzu 2,500 years ago in the warring, states of China, he had experienced this Tao, or this way, or this harmony, and this oneness. It makes me wonder about his full story, which is a different show in itself, ladies and gentlemen, but it's very fascinating to think that he was on this mission of trying to solve and understand and, create solutions for the world. And it's amazing how these ideas that Lao-tzu came up with 2,500 years ago can still be applicable today in our modern world, which is why Wayne Dyer has done this here and has brought this to us. But it's why I do this, because I think this can help some of us, if not at least one of us, ladies and gentlemen, because great change begins with an individual and also begins within the individual. And maybe we could be one of those individuals. Now, let us continue. Subjugating our egos rather than our neighbors or our competitors. Lao-tzu, Wayne continues, was addressing countries and their political leaders in this chapter. But countries are made up, it's funny, I was just saying this, countries are made up of individual men and women. We need to become a critical mass of individuals who are willing to model the wisdom that the great Chinese master offers us here today. We all must learn the value of making a dramatic change in the way we think of ourselves and also each other. Remember, that's what this is all about, changing, beginning to practice and beginning to change the way that we think. And when you can change the way you think, you change your life. Or when you change the things that you look at, the things that you look at change. Change the way you look at things, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, yes. So we got to make a dramatic change in the way we think of ourselves and each other. Yes, Wayne says, it may require a complete about-face on our planet, a complete turnaround, quote unquote. But if we begin to lessen ego-dominated thinking, sooner or later, the world will get the message that Lao-tzu proposed in ancient times. Nations all over the globe will find that leaders with feminine yin energy are beneficial. After all, this is the way of nature. It is the Tao at work. And remember, he wrote this probably 15, 20 years ago, so that gives you some perspective on where he's coming from. It is the Tao at work. This is all the way of nature. These are interesting sentences and deep ones. Wayne continues, you can apply the wisdom of this verse in the business world or with anyone you encounter by updating the notion that towering above others in the Yang approach of masculine domination is the way to get ahead. So we want to change that. Instead, see the value of living as if you can win trust and friendship through a yin approach of feminine receptivity and stillness. And we can all have these masculine and feminine aspects, ladies and gentlemen, as parts of our character that create a balance and a harmony, thinking of the yin and the yang, or the polarities. You can apply the wisdom of this verse as you try on these new attitudes and behaviors. Quietly watch as the energy from the following suggestions begins to influence your reality. So number one, reassess your personal view of what constitutes strength. What constitutes strength for you, ladies and gentlemen? And think on that for a second. Just kind of the quick, things that pop into your head. What is strength? Well, it's this idea probably of towering over or being stronger than or better than or defeating. But let's see what Wayne thinks about this. Reassess your personal view of what constitutes strength. Can you see power in humility? Because it is there. This is what Wayne is saying, though. Can you see power in humility, stillness, and remaining low and out of sight? Question mark. Can you see power in these abilities? Humility, stillness, remaining low and out of sight. The strongest conqueror is the one who uses the least force and converts the lunges, I was like, what? Converts the lunges of his opponent into his own might. So you might think about Kung Fu to where, someone tries to come at you and you use their own force to block it, or, simple example there. The strongest conqueror is the one who uses the least force and converts the lunges of his opponent into his own might. And we can think about this like last week's lesson of dealing with negative people in our lives and how we can convert this energy. One guy talked about it like, it's like if someone shoots a flaming arrow at you, you grab the arrow, blow out the flame, and add it to your quiver. And so I like that metaphor. It's like they cannot attack me. They're just giving me more fuel to do what it is that I know that I need to do. And so how do we do this? By staying calm, Wayne says, and under the radar, others will ultimately flow to you, joining with you in creating friendship and trust. As you stay in this yin, feminine, divine mother mode, Wayne calls it, you'll radiate energy and strength and win over others, including those with an aversion to change, which is a struggle for many of us. Think of yourself as the ocean and stay low enough to allow others to stream down to you and create a great country, quote unquote, wherever you elect to settle. Now, here's the number 2 suggestion on how we can try these new attitudes and behaviors and quietly watch as the energy from the following suggestions begins to influence our reality. Number 2, emulate those whose greatest impact on humanity use the least violent methods. There are many examples to be found for living by remaining low, replicating the example of stillness and yin energy. Wayne says Jesus Christ, Buddha, Muhammad, Zoroaster, Saint Francis of Assisi, Gandhi, Mother Teresa, and others are of the highest spiritual persuasion, or others of the highest spiritual persuasion serve as wonderful role models for us by demonstrating the exact opposite of what has become known as power by force. And there's a great book on consciousness and these ideas of power and force, which is titled Power versus Force by David Hawkins. So if you've never heard of that, be sure to check that up. It's a very fascinating read. I'm really surprised I actually made it all the way through that book. I think it was like 600 pages or something, but a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, I was really diving deep into spirituality and the ideas of consciousness and how there is this way that Lao-tzu is describing. There's this harmonious way that we can do what it is we need to do in life and get to where we want to go by using power rather than force. And he talks about these positive and negative aspects of what could sometimes seem to be the same thing, but is really is what Wayne is describing here, these opposites of the masculine and feminine energies, or the yin and the yang. But remember, there must always be balance. So that is another key. By demonstrating the exact opposite of what has become known as power by force, they change the course of human history. Furthermore, they are remembered with the highest esteem by all people. You can become a similar leader of the Tao in your immediate environment, wherever that be for us, ladies and gentlemen, whether we be at home or whether we be at work or whether we be in any kind of environment. We, by demonstrating the exact opposite of what has come known of this, what's being described here today, this masculine power, defeat, got to be better and get ahead of everybody else. You can become a similar leader of the Tao in your immediate environment, smiling inwardly as you see yourself as that low, patient ocean. All those who wish to tower above you in conquest will ultimately flow down to you. And I know this seems paradoxical, but it's amazing how these things can begin to work in your life, especially when you begin to apply and practice and create these abilities of this wisdom. and you'll begin to see things where it doesn't happen immediately, but like it says, by remaining low and smiling inwardly, as those negative people or those who strive and push to get ahead, fight and struggle the whole way, all those who wish to tower above you in conquest will ultimately, in due time, I will add, flow down to you. And at the end of each of these chapters, today we'll keep it simple and short, ladies and gentlemen. I actually had an oil change to do, so it'll be a little later video than normal, but that's totally fine. Got to take care of life as well as the wisdom of the Tao. But I felt it important to show up and at least do this one today, because you never know what kind of amazing, fascinating lessons you'll get from just a couple pages or a few lines of the Tao Te Ching. And I always find it interesting how when I'm listening to videos like this one, which I love to do, which is why I do these anyways, because I'd be listening to this kind of video if I wasn't doing it myself. So thank you for being here, ladies and gentlemen. And if you're getting value, consider subscribing. And if you are subscribed, then I really thank you for returning. And let me know who you are down in the comments below, and I'll respond to you. I love to hear from people who watch these videos. And it's so great to see that more and more people over time are getting value. But the reason you want to get this for yourself, to put it on your shelf, which mine's on the other side of the TV over there. As you can see, this is not a bookshelf. But don't worry, ladies and gentlemen, my bookshelves are very full. I actually need like 2 new ones, but got to find room for bookshelves. Anyways, the reason you want to get this for yourself, to put it on your shelf, which is linked in the description below the video, wherever that is, there's a little more. You open that up and expand. The link is there to get this for yourself and put it on your shelf, because at the end of each of these chapters, Wayne Dyer gives us a way that we can take this wisdom that may seem to be up there in the clouds or hard to, grasp or get a real practical hold on. He gives us what is called do the Tao now at the end of each of these verses. So it's great reference material. And what he says here today, do the Tao now. Each day, as you grapple with how to be an effective leader in your family, in your country, and in the world, apply the following advice from Sai Baba. This is what he counsels readers to do whenever they question what action to take or how to think. Powerful. So whenever you're questioning what action to take or how you should think about something, remember the advice from Sai Baba. He says, quote, when headfast eyes are horrified by the cruelties of life, when your mouth is parched and you can hardly speak, the first sip of cool water, I am soothing you. Think of me. Interesting. So Wayne says, in a moment of crisis, silently say, think of me, to your mental image of the person who won you over by stooping and remaining low. So, whoever is a teacher or a guide to you in your journey in life, like Wayne is for me and many others of these great and wise masters. But in a moment of crisis, or when you are wondering what kind of action you should take or how to think, remember of that counselor or guide for you and say silently, think of me, to your mental image of the person who won you over by stooping and remaining low. Wayne finishes up here by saying, you'll immediately find your way, as if that individual were directing you to overcome the struggle, addiction, or ego-dominated thoughts that seem to take you away from your feminine Tao nature. And that is a boom to knowledge, ladies and gentlemen, a boom to the wisdom of the Tao. And that was a simple one. It's one of those ones that's tough for me to elaborate on, because it's kind of a simple lesson, but there's so many metaphorical and contradictory aspects to it. And it's definitely one worth studying again in the future. Living by remaining low, ladies and gentlemen. And the power of that. Very fascinating. We'll see what I title this video. But next week, ladies and gentlemen, on the 62nd verse of the Tao Te Ching on Tuesday Tao, every Tuesday, you'll find me here this time in the afternoon or a little earlier, but any time in between noon and 3. And we'll be looking at living in the treasure house of the Tao. And it's a longer verse, the 62nd verse. So if you want to get a head start, you can look up the 62nd verse of the Tao anywhere online and get yourself headed in the right direction, ladies and gentlemen, because this one seems fascinating. He says, practice seeing the door of the treasure house opening to you, and practice forgiving and avoiding judgment when you see reprehensible ways. Interesting, very fascinating. I hope that you got something out of this, ladies and gentlemen. I always do. You know, I don't do this for no reason. I really do get something out of it. And so I'm hoping whoever joins me here on the channel does as well. And that is my goal, so that we can increase the quality of our lives, ladies and gentlemen, and in turn, increase the quality of the lives of those around us. And hopefully, eventually, lead to a much greater world, ladies and gentlemen. There's been a lot of thought lately on the transition of the ages and going from the, into the golden age in the future, and where we've come from and where we're going, and ancient advanced civilizations that were much, higher consciousness or higher levels of spirituality than we found ourselves in our more recent past. But it's very fascinating because each of these are steps up the ladder or up the stairs on the journey, ladies and gentlemen. And so this great journey of our lives, of hopefully creating or influencing some kind of change for the better in the consciousness of humanity and just those we interact with in our daily lives, hopefully we can get there. But it's one step at a time, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, the greatest journey begins with a single step. And so, remember to seek to achieve and maintain happiness through enlightenment. Seek to discover the hidden wisdom of the ages, the wisdom that is out there that's ready to help us and guide us and lift us up to higher levels, ladies and gentlemen. And remember also to change your thoughts and begin to change your perspective and awareness, and begin to understand that there is no way to happiness, because happiness is the way. What that means is, if we're constantly striving rather than arriving where we are now, then we'll never be able to arrive, because we'll never have practiced it. We'll always have practiced striving. And so when we do get to a goal that we're like, yes, good job, we won't know how to be there and appreciate it. We'll just go on to the next thing because that's all we know how to do. So when I say there is no way to happiness, happiness is the way, it's a cool little saying and I love it a lot. But it means that we need to begin to bring happiness to life, ladies and gentlemen, rather than always striving and telling yourself, oh, I'll be happy when I get there. Because when we can bring happiness to life, those goals and those things become irrelevant because we're already there. And then the entire journey towards wherever it is we want to go is wonderful, ladies and gentlemen. I want to thank you so much for being here and spending time with me and Dr. Wayne Dyer and Lao-tzu on these Tuesday Dows, and Timothy Freak and Peter Gandy and all the wonderful authors and poets from the wisdom of the ages and our history of the Hermetica that we've been diving into on Wednesdays, which we'll be doing tomorrow. So I hope to see you there. Should be a fun one, ladies and gentlemen. That's been a great journey of learning the interesting, lost, esoteric wisdom of the pharaohs and the old wisdom of the ages, ladies and gentlemen, as that seems to be my favorite thing, the wisdom of the ages, whatever that may be to you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll catch you tomorrow. And once again, I love and appreciate all of you. And thank you so much for being here. Be sure to subscribe and check the description below the video, because I've got my landscape paintings there. Apparently, I still need to do another one. But also, I've got a link to the book, as well as an audio book if you prefer to just listen. But, you're already getting that here. So either way, ladies and gentlemen, as well as a link to C60 Purple Power, the ultimate antioxidant known to man. Give yourself and a family member the gift of health. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow.